It's time for To The Last Drop podcast with Liam Delcalm and Brenden Nell.
After a massive weekend in which we saw the final of the URC, as well as the Springboks play their first test of 2024, we have an opportunity to recap on that weekend's action, but then also look forward to the Olympic Games because the Blitzboks have parachuted their way to Paris. They came through in the end in their repechage tournament in Monaco. And we have a special guest later in the program, but for now, Brenden,
Liam, I need to stop you quickly. We didn't do the intro properly. You're going to say, this is To The Last Drop. I'm Brenden Nell. And you are Liam Delcalm. No, we can just carry on. Let's just carry on.
We can do that. It's a good thing we don't have a sponsor. We forgot the sponsors now because then that'll be it. That'll be the end of it.
I think sponsors will be lining up after we do intros like this. So.
Yeah, that cupboard is bare.
Yeah. It's been a big weekend. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears at Loftus. A great game, a really great final, a great occasion. Not so much for the Bulls. I thought, Glasgow were exceptional. The way they played the Bulls, the way they sort of controlled the game and controlled their own sort of energy in the game. And in the interview that I did with Franco a bit later that you'll hear, he talks about how they had a breathing coach and how that contributed to them winning. So that's a very interesting chat. Stay around for that. But yeah,
breathing or breathing?
Apparently, breathing helps. I mean, we all have to breathe. I know that, but apparently, for the altitude, controlling your breathing makes quite a difference. And Franco did quite a bit of a study of athletes at high altitude, and so there's some nice stuff there. But yeah, in the game as well, I think probably, in my mind, it was just a game too far for the Bulls. They played as much as they won't want to admit it, they probably played their final against Leinster.
I remember speaking to Franco before the pool game against the Bulls at Loftus. They lost that one, but they made a fantastic second half recovery. But in the build up to that game, he spoke about altitude, and now it's not a big thing for them. It's not something that he will discuss with the players. It's for him, it's more of a mindset, because if you tick the right boxes, the altitude gets shifted down that list of priorities and becomes less important.
Yeah, and I think that there's a bit of a worrying factor in this as well, because altitude's always been South African team's friend, and if international sides are going to start working it out, it takes away a bit of an advantage, and it's something that our teams will probably have to look at a bit more about where else you can exploit matters. But I don't think we're going to say too much about the game. I think most people saw it. They saw the occasion. They saw the Bulls fell short, but I think some of the things we can talk about was a quite bizarre press conference afterwards.
I was going to say, because you mentioned earlier there was blood, sweat, and tears, and then there were some sour grapes too.
Yeah, well, we always show that we like our wine, so we don't necessarily like the sour grapes. But Jake came in, and obviously, and if anybody's seen the press conference, and it's out there on YouTube if you want to look for it, he came in and was rather unhappy, rather sour. And didn't look like a man who just was going to say, listen, we were beaten by a better team. He eventually did say it in the interview, but it took a very roundabout way and spoke about how the referee and other things that happened and how they missed opportunities. And yeah, I just thought, I mean, I've got a lot of time for Jake, but I just felt that was a bit... probably not the right tone to hit with after you've lost like that. Be the gracious loser. And I know it hurts and it's emotional, but yeah, it was rather bizarre.
Yeah, he fell well short of being magnanimous in that moment. Well, gracious, as you pointed it out. He took a few. He deviated well, of course, before he came back to what maybe he really ought to have said. He was also very late for that press conference, so don't know where he was before.
Yeah, it was strange. I mean, we got out of the stadium at about 11 o'clock at night, and I mean, I didn't realize it until I was walking out there. That how late it was, and how long we'd waited. So yeah, very strange. I'm not quite sure what happened. But the little chirp at the start there that he made as he came in, where he said, so is Franco been? And so we answered him, yes, he's already been here. He said, oh, well, if you win, then you get to go first. It was like a very strange little comment. But
Yeah,
let's mark
like,
it down to him being emotional and disappointed. And
I get that completely, but yeah.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, there's certain things that you expect of sportsmen when it happens. It's not easy, I'm sure, but it's the Bulls need to go and look at themselves. This has been a season where every second half in every game they've given up points, and they were certainly not well enough in front in the second half that they could stave it off as they have in so many other games. That second half slump is something that plagues them.
I was more impressed with Captain Ruan Norkea's comments after the game, because he also was emotional, but he spoke about the sort of the raw feelings, of the disappointment of having to experience a second defeat in a URC final, and I thought he was quite candid. He spoke about the hurt and how it will sting for a while, but I think it's probably got the makings of improving some of those players, because they know how low it can be and how lonely they can feel, and a place that they probably don't want to return to anytime soon.
Yeah, and for them, it's the second time in 3 years. And I asked the question of Bruno about how do you come back from that, and I was actually quite worried he was going to break down in tears. You really felt sorry for the guy, and you realize the emotional toll that it does take on players as well. We often see them in such other roles, and how vulnerable they are in that moment, and it's tough. But yeah, Ruan's a top player, and I'm sure he'll be back and he'll be better. And the Bulls team is certainly not at their crescendo just yet, and we expect them to be a lot better next year as well.
But kudos then to the Warriors, because they hit a considerable speed bump when they went to South Africa, losing to the Bulls and then to the Lions. They're losing badly to the Lions, and then had a chance to regroup. They didn't do a lot differently after that, but they were able to regroup and make that final surge towards the playoffs, and then obviously winning those three knockout games towards the title. I'm sure Franco Smith had a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, he did speak about the whole process and everything, and it's worth listening to. I'm not going to say his words. It's worth listening to him talk about how they got there and how they got through those tough times. The loss against the Lions certainly was that speed bump, and probably was in the long run a good thing for them, because it made them sit down and reassess and come back, and they did it the hard way. I mean, winning in Munster and Loftus in consecutive weeks is not something many teams do, and it certainly shows how good they were. And I think they fully deserved winners. And if it were, I think also for me, it was nice seeing Franco. We've both covered him as a player years ago, and knowing the guy like he is, he's a great coach, and he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. Decent human being too.
Yeah, no, very definitely. And then we, of course, had a Springbok squad. And that came out, and not so many surprises as many people would have thought. A couple of injuries. Cameron Honeycomb was injured, so he wasn't there. And 6 Bulls players added. A couple of players from overseas, Sia and Trevor Niakane coming into the squad as well. But of the players added, I suppose there's always a debate who's left out, and guys like Ruan Norkea and Elrich Lowe and Wilco Lowe. I thought Wilco Lowe was probably the guy who was probably the most unlucky after his season. But then you ask yourself, who do you drop for them? And I think we're in such a place in Springbok rugby where we've got so much talent at the moment coming through that it's definitely who do you leave out rather than who do you put in.
Well, another example there is like a player like a tight end like Neetling Forsie is on the standby list. So, didn't crack the nut. But you're right. I mean, who do you leave out? It's a very difficult decision to make, and it's a very good position to be in. It's not like the Springboks didn't win the last World Cup. They are World Cup champions, and now they've got so many options building up starting a fresh cycle towards the 2027 World Cup. So it's a good place to be in, and it's it's still up to the coaches and the selectors to make the right decisions. Um, but I mean, you would really want to be in Rassie Rasmus's boots, given the talent that's available to him.
Yeah, and if you think where he came in 2018 and what Springbok rugby was then, where it is now, the challenge now becomes how do you do that transition? Because there's a lot of players who are in the latter stages of their career who've won 2 World Cups now.
Mm,
And how do you bring in that new talent to make sure that there isn't a void, a gulf between when some players
mm,
retire and the new guys get their caps? So that's going to be the balancing act for Rassie now. But I think so far what we saw on Saturday against Wales was very encouraging, especially
mm,
seeing somebody like Edward van der Merwe take that challenge and win the man of the match and really take his chance.
mm. And 10 points to you there, Brendan, for not saying Edwil van Aarde, as a lot of people have made the mistake the last couple of days. Uh, give you a point in the Snell Vier afdeling for that one. No, you fantastic debut. A couple of guys then from that game that didn't get selected for the Island series, but that's not surprising at all. He was always going to, Rassie Rasmus was always going to revert to his more experienced players for the Island series. So he's had a look at them. He's obviously seen them in practice, some of them in match day situation. So he would have had a good look at those talents, and go back to them at some point. It's not as if I don't think anybody played themselves out of Springbok rugby last weekend. I think if anything, the credentials were on the up.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the one player I think maybe some people think maybe did, but knowing the Springboks and how they operate, I doubt
Mm,
it, is Jordan Hendrickson, because he did have a bit of a
yeah,
nervy game and he did make a couple of
yeah.
mistakes. But yeah, knowing the Springboks, they don't judge you on one game; they know your potential, and they judge the character of the player rather than one specific performance. So we'll see Jordan
Mm,
back. We'll see a number of other players coming in for the Portugal test. But with 27 World Cup winners in that squad, it's quite hard not to go with that call
yeah.
for the Ireland series. So we're going to have a lot more on the Ireland series next week. They arrive. It's going to look very interesting. But this week has been a very strange week with both Springboks and Bulls on the same day. It was a very strange Saturday there, but
It
ultimately
was.
a good rugby day.
It was. There was a buzz and an energy around Loftus that there's, I suppose most days there's a buzz and an energy, but like last Saturday, it was very much heightened. People got in early to watch the Springbok game on the big screens and around that precinct. So it was a good day out.
Yeah, it was, and for the man who had an extremely good day out, we're going to turn now and you're going to listen to my chat with Franco. I got him just as he was preparing to go to the Scotstoun Stadium to hand over the trophy to the fans. They sold out
Mm,
basically half the stadium, and being Glasgow being a soccer city with Rangers and Celtic, he was so glad that rugby was on the map and they could have that the taxi drivers, as he was saying, were talking rugby and not football to him. But yeah,
yeah.
I had a chat to him there. So have a listen. Yeah, it's quite an interesting chat. We're very fortunate to be joined by Franco Smith. Franco, I mean, you're back in Scotland now. It's been a whirlwind couple of days. Probably some of the best days of your career as a coach. Just how's it been? Have you had a chance to just take your breath by now?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. It's good to join you guys. Yeah, it's been hectic. You will hear in my voice the airplane air is still in it. So yeah, it's been hectic. We had to take the Emirates flight, which was a little bit longer, 15 hours on the way back, and that was quite strenuous after the festivities of the weekend. We got back here yesterday. Were welcomed back at the airport with from a fans' perspective, and yeah, and this evening there will be a bit of a function, and hopefully then we can put the season to bed.
You've obviously had, you say the celebration in Pretoria, but that's in your team hotel, probably, and the guys' private function. The reaction from back home, from what I've seen on Twitter, has been immense. Just maybe tell us a bit about how it was when you guys got back there. It must mean quite a bit to the rugby fans in Glasgow.
Yeah, when I came into Glasgow a couple of months, 20 months, 25 months ago, 20 months ago, when you asked the taxi driver, what was the main sport, it was all Rangers and Celtic football. And it is good for me to say that now the taxi drivers are all speaking about the Glasgow Warriors performance, which is in Glasgow is as itself a big feat. So obviously, apart from that, the fans were just fantastic. Expecting us as they've expected us at the airport, and they were obviously stoked is the word commonly used currently by the players. So they're really stoked, and we're looking forward to see them tonight. Like I said, I think there will be more of them. They've sold out the main stand this afternoon and this evening for the boys to come and present the trophy to them, and I think that will, like I said, hopefully bring a little bit of the festivities to an end before the boys start going back into Scotland camp or on holiday.
I can imagine. Well, I suppose the first question I'm going to ask you about the final is we spoke about it a bit. I asked you in the press conference a bit about it, and I know you said you guys didn't talk about it. Maybe you can tell us a bit now about the secrets about the Sky Runners and how you guys handled the altitude, because in both games against the Bulls, and especially on Saturday, you guys finished a lot stronger than the Bulls, which doesn't often happen at Loftus.
Oh, look, well, I think in November last year, I realized, obviously, when the schedule came out, that the game against the Bulls and the game against the Lions would be very important for us, to perform well. We obviously wanted, one of the objectives was to, change the perception that there's other components in the game that prevent you from performing. And so I started doing a little bit of research on the altitude thing. Obviously from previous experiences, everybody suggested less you say about it, better it is. I think I was one of the first guys that put up a banner in the Cheetah change room, or in the opposition change room in Toyota Stadium, where it says the height above sea level. And so it is something that's been discussed. So there's two ways of looking at it. One, you ignore the fact, and you don't mention it, and you just hope it doesn't have an effect. But I chose the other route. I made an issue of it. So I went to see what people do to prepare for high altitude sports, and what lengths do they go through to develop their themselves. And then I found the strategy there, which we implemented since December. A breathing strategy. We've got a breathing strategist in, and a specialist in, that helped us with our breathing components that's needed. We did some work around that before and after every training since December, and then obviously, if it worked or not, I wouldn't know. But obviously, the fact that we've made something more about it, allowed us to understand what it's going to be, how it's going to feel. And I don't think it comes all down to that, but at least we fronted up with this this issue, and I think that was just part of the process. You can decide if it works or not from a mental perspective. It's just important to cover all the aspects of the game.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I understand. I mean, the game of small margins, any type of advantage you can get obviously makes a huge difference. So that's why, and I agree. I mean, it wasn't the only way. I mean, the other thing I wanted to ask you about was one of the most impressive things on Saturday was the physicality of the players. And I know we often talk about, and Jake spoke about it a week before, about when there's something about a South African player, for instance, when you see in their eyes they're going to defend till the death. And I mean, you've played in teams like that as well, and coached teams like that. Then almost nobody can break through, and it almost felt like that sort of mentality was amongst your players on Saturday. They were excellent on defence.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about having a hard edge, and I definitely feel the South Africans brought that challenge to the URC now, as it's known, but it was Pro 14 and Pro 12 before they joined. And I think the first season specifically, it was obviously that the South African teams dominated the physical part of the game. Therefore, the Bulls and the Stormers in the final, and I thought that is the one thing that European rugby will have to step up and work on. And I coached in Super Rugby back in the days. I learned a lot from on a different aspect from the game. What was needed in my coaching philosophy. And when I started coaching now North, I wanted to marry the two components. So now if you bring some of the brilliance of the Southern Hemisphere and the physicality into this good structure that's already done and organized here in the Northern Hemisphere, you must get a good balance of, a good product. So, the secret to physicality, nobody really knows, I suppose. I've got my strategy and my plan, and the boys worked hard at it, not just to become physically strong, but also mental tough. And that is maybe where we made most strides.
And in terms, I mean, I know people have made it a lot about your team being the most maul tries, and the maul was a huge part of your season as well. I think it's something like 20 or 22 maul tries in the entire season. That was a big part of it. Maybe just go behind that strategy all season, because you're definitely not a team that's a one-trick pony, if I can put it that way. I mean, you've got lots of strike power at wide, but that was definitely head and shoulders above everybody else in the URC.
Now, look, everybody that's followed my career would know with the Cheetahs, it was one of the important things. It's something I started with Treviso back in the day. Yeah, for us to, if you have underperforming athletes or players that's has to make a step up, to control that part of the game helps a lot from a risk perspective, playing risk perspective. But in the same time, it allows you, obviously, to tie the opposition tight five down. And it's all about creating space. It's all about allowing us to play with the ball in hand. The more better you are at certain things, scrum and maul time, I suppose. And this is a common. It's not a secret. It's common knowledge, I suppose. The better you are there, obviously allows you more space on the field to play to. And I think these two components complement each other. And then the success of the maul, obviously, it's all about hard work that is put in there.
You've obviously still got work to do. You guys aren't the finished product and with the Warriors, and I'm sure you're going to say there's still another step up that the guys can take, especially in Europe. What's the next goal for you guys?
Brenden, the next goal is to get consistency. We don't want to chase success. I don't want to chase success. I want to chase significance, and it's always been my philosophy. So, significance means that there's consistent performance, and you know what's the product when you run out on what you're going to get the day of the game. So, we want consistency. I know we enter now a new challenge in the fact that we will probably be favourites in most games next season due to the fact that we've won this year. That makes that target on our backs enormous. Along with that, I've got a lot of international players that will need to be managed. The break this season is short. So we've got 15 guys that's leaving on Friday for a 4-week tour of the Americas. Then I've got another 10 guys that stayed behind for physical conditioning. The important part is to keep everybody enthusiastic and put a new challenge out there. So a lot of things still to get better at and to improve on if we want to become that team or the club that can roll out consistent performances for the next years and not just make this a one-off opportunity.
Now, I suppose the question that a lot of people who've spoken to me in the last couple of days have asked, and I'm going to have to ask you, and I know it's probably you're going to say you're with Glasgow Warriors for a while now, but you were part of the Springbok coaching setup at one stage. You were assistant coach there. And is there a desire to one day become the head coach of the Boks, or is that something that's maybe in the future, if it happens, it happens?
Yeah, I think the latter is a better answer. I would love to, I'd love to represent my country. It was awesome experience as a player. It's fond memory still on WhatsApp groups from there back then, and real really proud of that, and then to have been involved in the Springbok coaching setup was unbelievable. I thought we went through a blunt patch that stage when I was involved, and I wanted to obviously improve my own coaching ability even more. So the Cheetahs offered me that back in the day when I resigned, and now I need to make the most of the opportunities for that decision made. So. Of course, it stays a dream, a childhood dream, to be involved in Springboks, to be the best in South Africa is always obviously a pinnacle. But if I've through the grace, I've never had to apply for a job yet, so it all came naturally. And if something like that arises, that would be fantastic. But I obviously, like I'm a religious person, and I believe that if the dear Lord wants me to do that, then that will come on my way and in my path. But for now, I know I'm getting older now, 52 years old, and one tends to look ahead, what's left and what you want to do. So obviously a lot of challenges still ahead, and so for now, my family and my wife made a big sacrifice for living in South Africa most of the time, due to the fact that my daughter was finishing up with school this year. She'll be finished by the end of this year now, and that will also put a new spin on what's going to happen next. Where's she going to study here in the north, or is she going to study down in South Africa? All depends on, I don't want to anticipate too much. We'll just take it day by day.
Yeah, I was going to say it's actually I pointed out to a lot of people that the fact that your guys' coaching team, which took a lot of flack when you guys were with the Springboks, yourself, you've obviously achieved quite a bit, and Johan van Graan, the other assistant coach, took Bath to the Premiership final. So sometimes just the mix is not right with coaching things, and I think you guys know that. But there's a reason why you guys were in that Bok coaching team at that stage, and it's great to see both of you do so well at the moment.
Yeah, I must say, Johan is doing a great job. Matt went to the World Cup, became a World Cup winner. So yes, it sometimes just works out different. There's so many ingredients in coaching. It's so easy. People so easy say he's not a good coach. There's so many ingredients from a physically development rugby player's perspective, from a mental perspective, from the gel of the squad, the belief, the growth, the character, the personality of the team. There's so many ingredients that need to go into getting the perfect product that people wouldn't always understand. It's not just a result. It's not easy to create a result. There's a lot of ingredients. It's individuals that needs to be honest in one direction, and they all got their different personalities, different character, different beliefs, different culture, and everything's got to be married. So the product on the field comes through obviously the technical side of things, but there's to get everybody to perform at their best is a skill, and it takes time. So yeah, the coaching groups that maybe we would think didn't work out that at that stage, but again, so many ingredients, and therefore Rassi did well to marry a lot of different cultures when he took over, and it gave a direction that other people followed. So again, all the successful coaches, and it will be interesting to see how Scott Robinson now put his stuff, his group together. I purposely challenged myself to take the Glasgow Warriors coaching group just as it is. I didn't want to change, to make sure that also in my ability to work with people, I will get the best out of my coaching group around me. And again, a lot of challenges around putting a coaching group together.
Yeah, I was going to say the last question from me. I see I said 15 minutes, so we'll do 15 minutes. The last question from me is just I know you've got players who you said are going for obviously conditioning over this next period, etc. And you guys have got a very limited window where you guys actually have some off time. Are you going to at least take some time to savor this with the family and enjoy it before you start the hard work of the next season?
Yeah, no, I'm coming back tomorrow. Actually, Wednesday, I'll fly back to South Africa, and then spend 4 weeks with the family, traveling the whole of South Africa, to be honest, because they are so well spread over it, and having a chance to see parents and family will be obviously important ingredients in fueling myself for the next season.
Oh, no, that's great. Let's all enjoy it and enjoy the time. And it's going to be, before we know it, we're going to be back into another URC season again. But thanks for chatting with us, Franco. And yeah, as I say, I saw that picture of you drenched in the change room. I'm sure it was it was one of the nicest moments as well. So
Yeah, it was fantastic, and appreciative of the players' energy around achieving what they've done, and hopefully this will be a start, not a finish.
the other news, Liam, this past week was the Blitzboks qualifying for the Olympic Games. Quite a roundabout trip that they took. They didn't finish in the top four where they normally qualify for the Olympics. They had to go then to the African Cup in Harare, and there they were shocked by Kenya in the final. And Kenya qualified, and they had one last chance in Monaco, in front of probably one of their biggest supporters, Princess Charlene, who handed over their jerseys on the day before the tournament. They played and they came up against Great Britain, who've beaten them about 3 tournaments ago. I think in Singapore, Great Britain beat them, and they won a very tense final. So they qualified. Lots of celebrations and tears afterwards that they've made that. Now they're going to the Olympics, and yeah, we had a chat. You and I, we had some technology problems. The first half of the chat,
Yeah, amongst other things.
Mike decided it wasn't going to work, and there were power failures and other things. But Liam joined us after a little while, and then it was a good chat.
It was getting those insights from the tightrope that they had to walk, because to work your way back into the Olympic dream, as it were, because it looked lost for a while, and then they somehow, found their way back. So I think it'll, and then as he explained, I mean, we asked him about it, how that will actually benefit them doing it the roundabout way, the mental sort of fortitude that they had to show to get through those tight and tense moments. And I'm sure there would have been a lot of angst, and they'll be hugely relieved to have qualified, because I think when they start their campaign in France, I think they will be well emboldened by their performances in that repechage.
Yeah, and that's we're going to leave you now as we go out with that one. It's been a strange episode, forgetting the intro, having some technical problems, but hopefully it all goes well. And you've all listened, and next week we'll be back with Ireland, and probably a lot more about the Springboks in Ireland. We're planning 1 or 2 surprises, but so tune in next week, and we'll leave you with Philip Snyman, who talks about their road to the Olympics. Yeah. Well, we've got a very special guest today. It seems like it's the Free State edition of the podcast this week, because we've also spoken to Franco Smith after Glasgow's wonderful win at Loftus. And now we've got another Free Stater, Philippolis, or Philippolis, is that right? Philip Snyman, that's where you're from originally?
Yes, Philippus from Philippolis. That's indeed the most southern point, the smallest town in the Free State.
I've actually been there. I've actually stayed there in the guest house a couple of times on the way back from the Southern Cape. So there's an old journalist there, Jens. I'm trying to think of his surname. Yeah, he's opened a guest house there, and it's quite a nice experience. They make lovely Karoo lamb chops when you go past there. So it's always worth going.
The best lamb chops in South Africa. Still get my lamb chops, and I don't know if you've heard this saying, but a lot of people see Philippolis as the San Diego of South Africa. So I'm really proud of that.
I haven't heard that one yet. I must admit. But Philip, why we're chatting to you, obviously, is because the Blitzboks qualified now for the Paris Olympics. Yeah, something that I suppose we took for granted in the last couple of years, but qualifying for the Olympics. But there's been some tough times in the Blitzboks of late. You've come in as interim coach in the last couple of months as well to steady the ship. Is it just more sense of relief that this goal's been sort of ticked off, or what's your feeling after a wonderful weekend in Monaco?
Yeah, it's been definitely a sense of relief, and to be honest, I think for the last 2 or 3 tournaments, we actually played really good rugby, topped the pool stages, but then come short in a quarterfinal. So slowly but surely things were turning, but it's one thing saying that, and for the general public or the fans, and even for yourself. If you don't get the results, you don't get the full puzzle together. And I think this weekend everything came together, and the massive sign of relief for us to qualify against a top team, Great Britain. So really happy, and really stoked for the guys.
It's really obviously because some people might not follow the Blitzboks as closely as some of us who cover you guys every week. But yeah, we're so used to the Blitzboks being one of the top 2-3 sides in the world and winning tournaments and challenging for the World Series that the last of the 2-3 seasons has really been a bit of a rebuilding phase. You guys have lost a lot of experience. You had a new coach come in. There's been some internal stuff I'm sure you could probably talk about better than me, that you guys have had to sort out. But it's been a rather challenging 2-3 seasons. I know you weren't involved in the entire 2-3 seasons. You were on the outside and you were coaching elsewhere as well. But there have been quite a few things to sort out in the last couple of months.
Yes, definitely. I think first of all, one need to acknowledge the fact that the series is a little bit different now, with only top 12 teams playing on the circuit, and I think every country have stepped up their game. You can see all the smaller countries, or a team like Argentina, they've been dominating this season. The French team is putting a lot of money and time into their program. New Zealand will always be a force. Australia. So there's no such thing as an easy game anymore. Great Britain combining with Wales, Scotland, England, a very strong team, and even a team like Spain. They showed. Listen, they're going to put money and they're going to put their effort into their sevens program. I think smaller nations often feel like they can compete in the sevens code, where not necessarily the fact in the 15-man code. So, but yeah, we did have some problems. There was one or two things going on, but I believe we're on the right track now. We identified, and I think the first thing is in the system, one need to identify where's the shortcomings and what you need to change, and what do you need to do differently. And I think we're busy with the right stuff, and we have a good supporting team from SA Rugby that's helping us, and I think we're on the right track now.
On those internal issues, there has been some talk about Ricardo Duarte and where he burst onto the scene and then disappeared as well. I know there's been some internal disciplinary issues that you guys have to sort out. Can you tell us anything about that, or do you want to tell us anything about that?
Yep. I'm open to discuss any, but the main thing is I don't like to discuss if somebody else not in the room. But I actually had a coffee with Ricardo 2 weeks ago, and I said to him the same thing. I think that the one thing one need to realize, if there's a party, or if you made a mistake, there's consequences, and one need to deal with it. And from my side and from the management, and we can move on and we can forgive, but obviously there's consequences. And we're busy still dealing with it. But he will definitely, I think the main thing for us is to see if we can get him back into the squad after the season, to start on a clean sheet, to see if we can overcome those issues and if we can maybe start build on a new, fresh page. But the biggest thing is you can't do it in the middle of the season if you need to still qualify for the big games. And so that was our biggest thing. Don't do anything to jeopardize that. Let the main thing stays the main thing, and then we can sort out everything. But he's a very good rugby player. He has a lot to offer. But one thing is the Springbok Sevens and the team comes first, not the individual. And if I'm part of them, I need to leave the system for a bit, because the Springbok Sevens team will always come first.
Philip, just on Monaco as such, it was a tough one, because for a lot of the teams you played, people would almost expect you'd put up big scores against them. Mexico, Tonga. I mean, teams like that who you would be expected to beat. But it's all part of also building this past weekend towards the final. And you knew at some point in a semi-final or a final you're going to get a tough game. So it was a bit different to your normal World Series, but how did you guys approach that? And just how were those nerves in the final, especially when Great Britain scored late in that first half, and it was pretty close.
Yes, I think we took a little bit of a different approach. because you don't know the teams that well. You don't know Mexico that well. Yes, they've played on the Challenger Series. Tonga, you know a little bit. They play island style, and Chile have been phenomenal in the Challenger Series. They also played for a spot on the World Series in Madrid. So still, you analyze them, you go according to things, but I told the guys, I said, let the main thing stays us, and let focus on ourselves, because I believe if we do us perfectly, we should beat all of those teams, especially in the pool stages. And I think that was the message: stay in the moment and take control of what we can. And I think that worked for us. We had a really good first day, a really good second day, only conceding 2 tries in those first 2 days, and then even better on final days. When it came to the knockout stages, Uganda is a quality team. They can score tries against any team. They showed they've beaten a couple of big teams. Canada have beaten a couple of big teams. Didn't concede any tries against them. And then Great Britain, the final, and there's only one spot. And I got a little bit flashbacks for myself. I don't think there were a lot of people involved back in the squad in 2016 when we played in the Olympic Games, and they knocked us out of the semi-finals where we were favourites to maybe go on to get the gold medal. So they knocked us out. But then also realized you can't make it a personal thing. And I realized if we do us perfect again in this game, keep things basic, the result will look after itself after a great tournament. And the biggest thing for us was our defense, and we only conceded 3 tries throughout the tournament. So I'm really happy with the way the guys played and qualified for the Olympic Games now. But Liam, on your answer there, definitely, I think we identified 1 or 2 areas that we need to work on. Yes, Liam. Yeah, so
Absolutely. Carry on with your answer.
Liam, yes, we identified 1 or 2 areas that we need to improve on. And in the beginning of the tournament, we did a little bit of a mental exercise. I put a slideshow on. Not that I'm famous for my mental skills, but obviously we didn't travel with a mental coach. So we did 1 or 2 exercises with the team. And I think the big thing that came out is that we want to approach this as our final prep for the Olympic Games. And with that, it's not that we're going to qualify automatically. There's still very tough matches that we need to play, but we saw that as final prep. And as part of our final prep, we know on the circuit this year, we're the team that scored the quickest out of all the teams when we have ball in hand. So our biggest obstacle was to keep ball in hand and to keep ball possession. And then also when you defend, to make turnovers. And so, yeah, defense, our biggest challenge and our biggest work on for the Olympic Games. And I think we got that spot on. We made numerous of turnovers, I think the most in the tournament. Our defense success rate was the highest it's been the whole season, close to 90%. So small stuff that we've put in place. We've actually changed the defense system 3 tournaments ago, and we knew if we can get it right, the qualifiers teams it will be difficult for them to score against us, and we got it right at the right time. So really happy with that. So that was all part of the plan going into the Olympics, and things worked out for us.
I was going to say, Philip, the one part in the final game that I thought was really encouraging is every now and again you see just a moment, and I know it's just a moment in the game, but it tells you that it shows you what the team's capable of, and that try of Shilton's off the kickoff where the Great Britain player knocked it back in, and just that moment from Selvin, seeing him flying there and just popping that past to him. That must be pleasing for you when you see things like that happen, because those are those wow moments that we know the Blitzboks for, and we don't.
Yes, Brendan, that's exactly that. So that's what Springbok 7 is all about. And the biggest thing that we said, also part of that mental slideshow that we showed the guys, if the system works, there's a lot of space in the system for individual brilliance to come out. And the system is only as strong as the individual, and the individual will be strong as the system. And that showed the system was really strong this weekend, and that the team or the individuals actually have freedom to play inside the system for those individual brilliant moments. And but that gave me a lot of confidence that the guys are backing the system. They're buying into the plan. And it showed, like, listen, this team they can still score tries out of nothing. The biggest thing is we need to get our defense right to get more ball in hand. Then it's a very dangerous team.
Philip, I know you going into the repechage, the focus obviously just to get through. I mean, that would have been your primary objective. But from what you could glean in your squad amongst the players, especially the Olympic dream, obviously athletes of before Olympic Games, they talk about the Olympic dream and the participating in an Olympic Games and also obviously trying to get onto the podium. Did you get a sense that there is that excitement, in the build up to the repechage and obviously post it, maybe that has been heightened?
Yes, definitely. There was definitely that excitement in the squad. Everybody know, like, I don't think we had to discuss the goal. You're going to that tournament, you're only one spot, so the goal is never to finish top two or to podium. The goal is always to win the tournament. Otherwise, you might as well stay at home. So there's always that excitement. But I think the good thing is we never talked about it because we know that's the goal. We said we're going to focus on ourselves. And day one, day two, game one, and as the tournament goes on, and the way we started that tournament without conceding tries, the next day conceding 2 tries, and in the playoff where the games are a little bit more difficult, we only conceded a try in the final. So I think the guys had the right mindset, but also not putting too much emphasis on the main goal, because so the moment you put emphasis on the main goal, you might stumble over a couple of hurdles or you lose focus and don't stay in the moment. So that was our big thing: stay in the moment. And if there's any mistakes in that Great Britain game, there was 1 or 2 mistakes. And what we said is, if there's a mistake, let's park it, put it behind us, and focus on the next job only. And I can think of 1 or 2 things: not kicking the ball out into touch where they scored their try. That's the thing that we said: listen, you can't operate out of fear. Put it aside. Yes, we've made a mistake, but then put it beside you and then focus on the next job. And I think that's exactly what the team did. And that's why we got the result in the end.
I don't know how you feel about this. Whether it's whether you could ascribe it to irony, but the fact that you had to come through this repechage, get into the Olympics the hard way. There's the physical element of that. There's also the mental element of that. They're having to dig deep to get there. Do you think, in a weird way, that has actually prepared your team very well for the Olympic Games? In that, I mean, what kind of other preparation would the other guys have had? Because, I mean, for you guys, it is basically sink or swim.
Yes, Liam, definitely. I think we took a couple of gravel roads and a couple of dirt roads. If I close my eyes, we might have been in Philip at one stage, and there's only dirt roads. Um, all the way to Zimbabwe, not qualifying there, not the greatest of seasons. And then going into this final prep, like I said, in Hong Kong, top our pool, things are starting to turn, but very slowly. Then Singapore, top our pool, but losing in the quarterfinals, then glimpses in the grand finale, coming so close to Ireland, New Zealand, playing in that top eight. So one of our goals was to finish top eight, which we did. And then this qualifies now for the Olympic Games. So I think we had the perfect prep. And to be honest, I think we did learn some lessons. We learned some lessons throughout the season, but they showed. I told them we can't only learn lessons and never pass the exam. And luckily for us, we've learned those lessons and we passed the exam. And I think this was great preparation for us. There's a lot of at stake, and the guys were up for the challenge. We said we want to embrace the moment, and that's exactly what they did. They stepped up when it counted, and they pulled it through. So really happy and really proud of the guys.
Philip, you guys now you see you spoke about being so close to Ireland and New Zealand. Those are 2 heartbreaking losses. I mean, in the grand final, but you've got them again in the Olympics now. You're drawn with them in the same pool. So, just how do you feel about that? And obviously, your draw is quite a tough draw, but looking across the 3 pools, there isn't really an easy draw in any pool. It's going to be quite a dogfight for those places in the semifinals.
Definitely, Brendan. I think when we saw the pool, we were at a post-match conference, myself and Selvin Davids, and the pools came out, and having Ireland, New Zealand, and I know we can beat them. We beat them in the season. We came close. In that last tournament in Madrid, we were 4 guys from the field scoring a try against New Zealand. Ireland, we were leading 21-7, last dying second, turnover ball. So I believe we have everything. We have the ability to beat those teams. We'll need to work hard and be up for it like we were in this last tournament, but I'm confident. So yes, there's no easy pool, but also it's the same mindset. If you want to podium in the Olympics, you need to be able to win every team. So that will be our mindset: New Zealand, Ireland, and then Japan. And the one thing, like I said, I think our defense, our system is much stronger now than it was a couple of weeks ago. So we've changed one or two things. We knew it's not going to be perfect straight away. We struggled a little bit in Madrid with our defense, and then we worked hard, and then the whole puzzle came together. And I know they're different teams, but if we can have that same mindset, the same mentality, and the same tackle success rate, and then we'll have more ball possession against those guys. And then we know a guy like Selvin Davids, a Shilton van Wyk, a Tristan Lates, they are very dangerous with ball in hand. So I'm fairly confident we're in much better space now, and I think our system is a lot stronger now.
Just one more from me, Philip. You obviously are battle hardened in the normal 7 series. You know how to negotiate those waters, but obviously the Olympic Games demand something slightly different. How does playing in the Olympics differ? What your basically your road to a gold or to the podium? How would that differ in terms of how you set out your stall, in terms of selection, or how you rest players? What's different in the Olympics?
Yes, I think that's one thing for us as South Africans, or for the Springbok Sevens team, those once-off tournaments in the past. I would say we struggled a little bit with it, and that was good prep for us now. This last qualified, the repechage, it was also a once-off tournament. It's all or nothing. But you only have 12 players and then 2 extra non-playing reserves, which you can bring in one player if it's needed. But you can't make those changes all the way through the tournament. So I think combinations for us are really important to make sure you have a good, solid starting lineup. I think it all starts with the starting lineup, and then also have 2 or 3 hybrid players that can cover more than one position to make sure if something goes wrong or if you pick up an injury, that those players can slot in seamlessly. So I think we have a great bunch of guys, and we basically our selection for the last tournament had a guy like Roscoe Speckman that can play 3 positions, Sean Williams that can play 2 or 3 positions, Sivueso Zwape that can play 2 positions, and then 1 or 2 forwards that can double up also. So I think that's to get that perfect combination, and also that perfect dynamic in the squad where everybody is happy, we have a good team culture, and everybody have the same common goal. That will be our mindset for this Olympic Games.
Sorry, I was on mute. Final one from me is with everything we've been going on today, that's not surprising, is it?
If you see Santa Claus dropping behind you, that's like the next thing that's going to happen. Yes.
Final one from my point of view, Philip, is the one thing I suppose you can't prepare for, but comes down to how you handle it. Is if you think of your last couple of World Cup, last couple of Olympics. In 2020 in Tokyo, you had the whole COVID scare and Neil being quarantined and not being able to join the team, and all these things that sort of happened. How do you prepare for something for that? Because in every Olympics there has been sort of those curveballs thrown at you guys, and I'm sure you're probably going to get one that you won't expect this time around.
Yes, definitely. But to be honest, Brendan, I think we're prepared for anything now. Like I said, to qualify 3 weeks before you need to fly out, and if you're not up for the challenge, so we basically said whatever comes our way, we need to be up for it. But whatever they throw to our side, we need to be up for it. We didn't have the luxury to plan way in advance because we only qualified 3 days ago. So, and I also think the players realize with this last tournament, it might be some of our last Olympics, or for the players, it might be their last Olympic Games. So they want to throw everything at this. Doesn't matter what comes, whether we need to stay outside the village, whether we need to play with only 7 guys, whether doesn't matter what will come. If there's a new virus that's popping up in 2 days' time, hopefully not, crossing hands. But we'll be up for anything. And the main thing is we don't want to look for excuses. We don't want to try and find excuses. We want to focus on ourselves and do everything in our power to make sure this is the best Olympic Games for Springbok Sevens in history.
I think you're onto something here. It should be a sporting saying. If you go on to win a medal or go on to win gold, it should be you were able to stay outside the village.
As opposed to it takes a village, Liam. One of
Well,
those
whatever,
things,
thinking out of the box, staying in the village, whatever.
oh my
Liam, I
goodness.
like the way you think, and but yeah, the one thing that you promise, if we do, obviously it will be a fairy tale story for us and the perfect end to the season to get on that podium. But the one thing that you must promise, then we must have another chat with the
Oh, yeah.
technology right that day. So keep in mind, save the date so long, then we can get on another call that
We
day.
should we should get a tech sponsor here,
Well,
I think.
I was going to say, I'm sure the next time we'll chat to you, hopefully you'll be wearing a medal around your neck when you chat to us, and I think that's hopefully it will be as gold as the Springbok on your tracksuit top there. So.
Brenden and Liam, thank you very much. And listen, from my side, and I think from the team also, thank you very much for all your support. I mean, through thick and thin, you mentioned the Springbok supporter, the Springbok 7 supporter out there. Wasn't the best of seasons, and hopefully things turned around. Hopefully we got that little bit of momentum now going into the Olympics, and actually make the people at home excited about Springbok Sevens again. That's our big aim. Is to turn things completely around and to make Springbok Sevens that team that everybody is proud of, and that they want to follow them, and that every youngster out there want to run in the street, they want to become a Springbok Sevens player one day. So we'll do everything in our power to make sure we reach those goals, and always fighting for a better Springbok Sevens system. I think that's our common goal that we have in mind in the team.
You guys
That
have been an
sounds good.
inspiration, so good luck.
Thank you very much, Liam. Thank you very much, Bren. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks for chatting to us.
Thanks for listening, and a reminder, you can find all the To The Last Drop podcasts on the Brenden Nell YouTube channel, iono.fm, Spotify, Player.fm, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, and iTunes, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.